What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of the Ice Earned podcast. My name is Heidi. I'm a huge hockey fan. Full disclaimer, I do support Boston, and I'm a big advocate for women's sports. Ladies, gentlemen, non-binary pals, and everybody in between, we have rivalries. It is week 3 with the PWHL, and we are starting to see some teams really start to hate each other. Maybe not full-blown with 100 years of history behind it, but we are seeing teams really butt heads here. Getting a little ahead of myself. Let's start with the New York-Minnesota game last Sunday. New York City won in overtime 3 to Minnesota's 2. So it was the first loss for Minnesota, so good job to New York City. There was, I don't know if it was the first, but we had a penalty shot. It was a miss in overtime from Grace Zumwinkle. Definitely was the correct call on the ice. It was interesting because we don't see many elsewhere. I believe that was the second penalty shot in the league. One thing that people are going to be talking about, including myself, is the New York City team. They have grit. They are a sandpaper team. They are not afraid to throw the body, not afraid to throw some chirps, not afraid to push and shove, and really walk that line of what's going to be allowed. And that leads into the question that I have for this week, and that is, does New York have a penalty problem? Are they taking too many penalties? In this particular game, they took 4 penalties, and one of them was a penalty shot. Before this game, they took 4 against Montreal on the 10th and 4 versus Toronto on the 5th. I mean, to be fair, Toronto also had 5 in that game. I mean, it wasn't like it was a one-sided kind of deal. But as of the 18th, they were second most in the league for penalty minutes with 40. And Montreal was only one better with 42. Do they have too much grit? Are they walking that line a little bit too wobbly? Do they need to tone it down a little bit? Let me know. The other half of the grit for New York City comes from they were down 2 quick goals in that first half of the Minnesota game, but they really kind of knuckled it down, buttoned up that back line, and came back for the win. And that's not easy to do. Obviously, it's not impossible, but when you're down 2, it's a little bit more difficult than down 1. So coming back, scoring 3 unanswered goals is impressive. Even despite all their penalties, I think that the difference maker for New York was their power play. They did capitalize on the fewer power plays that they had that game, and I think that was really what won them the game. And definitely nothing against Minnesota's penalty kill at all. They have a great team. Obviously, we've seen it. They're currently top of the league, even with this loss, but the New York City power play just got it done, so well done to them. And the other standout for this game that I thought was Minnesota's sound guy. Whoever's in charge of the arena music has a good sense of humor, and I just always appreciate when I can laugh at the songs being played at certain times, such as when a Minnesota player gets a penalty, you hear "Oops, I Did It Again" by Britney Spears come on, and I got a good chuckle out of that one, so shout out to that guy or gal. The next game played this week was New York City again versus Montreal. Final score, New York City 2, Montreal 3. So the crowd was all over Levy from the jump. They had an entire half a rink, half an arena chanting Levy from behind the goal because of the previous game between these two teams. So, as I said at the top of the podcast, we are starting to see some rivalries, and I think this is going to be maybe not the main attraction, but I think it's going to be a decent rivalry from a fan perspective. Maybe not so much the teams, but definitely from the fans' perspective. So going back to New York's penalty problem, this game they took 5 penalties. Montreal only took 4, which again is not a small number, but just kind of goes to that trend of, are they taking too many penalties? Is this something that they should be concerned about going forward? Especially considering one of these penalties was Abby Rock taking one of the funniest but dumbest penalties I've ever seen, where in front of the benches she straight up takes somebody by the head or helmet, like on the top of their head, and just like throws them down on the ice. It wasn't as violent as it sounds describing it like that, but it was just so casual, and the player just, I don't even remember who it was, didn't see who it was, just like goes face first into the ice. I mean, it probably hurt, so it's not funny in that sense, but it was just so unnecessary. The puck wasn't anywhere close to this play, so like genuinely I did laugh. I did, not gonna lie. That being said, what is allowing them, I think, to take all of these penalties is that their PK has been stepping up. Their penalty kill unit has been really on it. One thing that they do need to work on, even though their penalty kill is so good, is just their overall defense structure. It seemed to break down at times, which I think cost them in the end. This game also had a lot of moments where goalies were getting run over. And obviously it's a fast game, and not everybody's going to stop on a dime or going to have the room to stop on a dime in certain situations. But is it the defensive players not thinking and just like slamming bodies wherever they can? Is it offensive players needing better stops? Do they need better breaks? Do they just need to look where they're going? I don't know what the issue is here, but this game, for whatever reason, there was just people on goalies the whole time, it felt like. Obviously, you want to like crash the net. You want to get in front of a goalie so that you can hopefully score, hopefully sneak one through their legs or in close. But I don't know, man. I've never seen so many goalies get run over in one single game. This was another game where the refs didn't have mics over the broadcast. I'm not sure if they had any in the stadium itself, but over the broadcast, that was not super helpful for new fans who don't know all of the different signals and motions yet. So I think that's something that they still need to make sure that they have figured out. And as far as attendance goes, Montreal really showed up once again with 6,334 people. Another great turnout, great participation, and I think the Montreal fans especially have bought in. They are going to be a very passionate fan base, as they are with all of their other teams. But this is just going to be another team that they have to root for, and hopefully they'll give them a good season. Alright, and that brings us to our player spotlight. This week is going to be Marie-Philippe Poulin, who a lot of people will recognize as number 29, the captain of the Montreal PWHL team, but also for the Canadian national team. So a little bit about Marie-Philippe. She was born on March 28th, 1991, in, I'm so sorry, French Canadians, Beauceville, Quebec, Canada. She had a very interesting young career where I couldn't find a ton of information about like her junior career or her like pre-pro career. But what I can tell you is that at 16 years old, she was just as impressive as she is now, and she was still growing into herself. So she played for the Montreal Stars of the Canadian Women's Hockey League, CWHL, in 2008-2009. Her rookie year, she played 16 games with 22 goals, 21 assists for 43 points. She made an absolute mockery of that league. That was child's play for her. The following year, she played partially with Dawson College before returning to the Montreal Stars, where she won a Clarkson Cup in 2009. She started Boston University in 2010. She played with the university until 2015, although she did take the 2013-2014 season off to play for Team Canada. Her career high year was 2012-2013, where she had 35 games played, 19 goals, 36 assists for 55 points. Once again, just absolutely dominant. Not as much of a domination as in the CWHL, but still very, very impressive college numbers. After college, she played for the Montreal Canadiens. Again, French Canadians, I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. It was the same team as the Montreal Stars, just with a different rebranded name. She played from 2015 to 2019. Her best season being 2018-2019. In 26 games played, she had 23 points, 27 assists, 50 points. Just absolutely dominant, and again, just a mockery of this league. She did not belong in this league at all. She needed her own league. And of course, people probably most recognize her from her international career, where she played for Team Canada in U18 and the regular women's team. In U18, she won 2 silver medals at the World Championships. As an adult, she has 3 gold medals at the World Championships in 2012, 2021, and 2022, and 8 silver at the Olympics. She has won 3 gold medals in 2010 in Vancouver, 2014 in Sochi, and 2022 in Beijing, as well as 1 silver medal in 2018 from Pyeongchang. What she's probably most known for, aside from her just domination and skill, is her ability to lead a team. She was captain of the BU Terriers in 2012-2013, as well as 2014-2015, and she's been captain of Team Canada from 2015 to the present day. And I'm sure everybody's heard her nickname of Captain Clutch. And for those of you who are not familiar, she got the nickname during the Olympics. It started because of a game-winning goal in the gold medal match versus the US, and then she has since scored game-winning goals in 3 of the 4 Olympic gold games that she's won: 2010, 2014, and 2022. So she was Captain Clutch as kind of just a fun nickname in 2010, and then when she became captain, it really solidified her captain of Captain Clutch. Some fun facts about Marie-Philippe. She is engaged to her assistant captain in Montreal, Laura Stacey. At BU, she studied psychology. She and Laura Stacey have a gorgeous golden retriever whose name is Arlo. At the 2022 Olympic Games, she was a flag bearer for Canada. And she was also one of the first players to join the PWHPA, the Players Association, which of course went on to create this league. Alright, and moving on to Boston versus Toronto. On the 17th, Boston 3, Toronto 2. Boston seems to enjoy a close game, another 3-2 game. They really like to keep us on the edge of our seats. Lauren Gable has really come out shining, especially in this game, with 2 goals and an assist. She had great positioning. She was where she needed to be, which really led to her being able to score so many. Alina Mueller also had a fantastic game with 3 primary assists. She's making these crazy plays, these crazy passes. The only comparison I can come up with that even makes sense is like Nick Backstrom. She can feed to whoever. As long as somebody is around, she can get it to them. So I'm really enjoying watching her play. Hannah Miller of Toronto also had a fantastic game with 2 goals. The second one was a really crazy, like, batting out of the air, hand-eye coordination kind of goal. I think, was it their Instagram page? The Toronto Instagram page said, like, hey, Blue Jays, you need a batter, which is pretty funny considering the Blue Jays are mid at best, last I checked. Another team that seems to potentially have a penalty problem is Boston, at least from this game. They took 5 penalties. The refs were just calling everything. I don't know what was up with that, but it seemed like they couldn't get away with anything. After that game, my notes here say, like, button up or get sneakier. Good grief. But the flip side of that was that their penalty kill really crushed it. They were, as of the 18th, best in the league at 100% in their penalty kills. So they were able to just stop everything despite taking so many penalties. So if that continues, I mean, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be difficult to watch, I think, actually. Emma Soderberg played her first game for Boston, and it was a really solid game. I mean, the second goal that she had against her was that hand-eye batting out of the air one, so that was not impossible to save, but super difficult unless you're like 6'4" and can have your shoulders be right under the bar while you're in butterfly. I don't know anybody who could falter for that. 30 out of 32 saves is really good. Those are some big numbers. Those are obviously professional numbers, but also, like, that's a lot. It's not an insignificant number of shots, so good for her. It was great to see her come out like that. The other big factor in this game was the quality versus quantity. Boston only had 22 shots on goal, while Toronto had 32. Boston might need to generate more chances and obviously shut it down in their own end more to save their poor goalie, but I mean, Toronto's really, really giving it their all. Like, I think this is pretty across the board. They've been generating a lot of shots. So that's something to look out for other teams going forward. On to the next game, Minnesota-Ottawa on the 17th as well. Minnesota 3, Ottawa 2 in overtime. So what was interesting was that Minnesota coming into this game was statistically the worst penalty kill with 71.4%, and Ottawa statistically the best power play at 30.8%. So that's really interesting and a testament to be careful who you take penalties against. Minnesota did take a couple penalties, but one of them ended up paying off for them in the long run because Zumwinkle had a jailbreak goal. The other two goals were from Tapani, and she is also the one who took the penalty for Zumwinkle's jailbreak, so she was the one getting broken out of jail. Has anybody decided the verbiage on that? Let me know. Once again, Nicole Hensley had some very athletic and impressive saves for this game. She's not a name that I was familiar with, not gonna lie, but she's really come out and impressed me a lot with her athleticism and just her ability to see when she probably shouldn't be able to see. And she's also not the tallest goalie in the world, so she's just been impressing me from the start here. So it was an Ottawa home crowd that was very excited to see all of Gabby Hughes' 5 shots on goal. She was one that just about every single time she had a shot, the crowd was super engaged and really expecting it to go in, I think. Another point about this game was that even though Ottawa is kind of towards the bottom of the standings, it was a very even match, it seemed. And really, the reason that Minnesota got the upper hand was just an unlucky redirect for Ottawa, at least from my point of view. I mean, it was kind of fitting that it just came down to a lucky break for Minnesota to take the win. Alright, I know everybody's already been talking about it, but here I am going to talk about it some more. The PWHL is having a 3v3 showcase at the NHL All-Star Game on Thursday, February 1st in Toronto. Just some general notes on the structure of the game. It'll be a 20-minute game, like I said, 3-on-3. 2 teams with 12-player rosters. Team King, named for Billie Jean King, coached by Coach Campbell Pascal, who is a PWHL special advisor. And Team Kloss, named for Ilana Kloss, another founder of the PWHL, coached by Megan Duggan. She is the Director of Player Development for the New Jersey Devils. All of the refs and lines people are women, and all are AHL officials. The roster for this showcase: on Team King, Kendall Coyne-Schofield from Minnesota, Hillary Knight from Boston, Alina Mueller from Boston, Kelly Panic from Minnesota, Marie-Philippe Poulin on Montreal, Blair Turnbull, Toronto, Savannah Harmon, Ottawa, Megan Keller, Boston, Ella Shelton, New York, Lee Steckline, Minnesota, Anne Renee Desbiens, Montreal, Erin Frankel, Boston. And for Team Kloss, Aaron Carpenter, New York, Emily Clark, Ottawa, Taylor Heisey, Minnesota, Brianne Jenner, Ottawa, Sarah Nurse, Toronto, Abby Rock, New York, Laura Stacy, Montreal, Erin Ambrose, Montreal, Renata Fast, Toronto, Jocelyn Larocque, Toronto, Nicole Hensley, Minnesota, and Emerence Mashmeyer, Ottawa. So for those of you who weren't counting in your head as you were listening to all of those names, Minnesota has 5 players, Boston has 4 players, Montreal has 4, Ottawa has 4, New York has 3, and Toronto has 3. Boston's players are all on the same team. Everyone else is kind of mixed up. The reason New York has 1 fewer player is because Micah Zandy Hart is injured and unable to play. 17 of the 18 original signing players with the PWHL are playing, and the only one not playing is Zandy Hart, again because she's injured. All the rest are draft picks. Some other interesting tidbits from that is that both captain of Team Canada and captain of Team USA are on Team King. Hilary Knight and Marie-Philippe Poulin playing together. You're not going to see that too often, so that'll be fun to see. And again, with Marie-Philippe Poulin, she is on Team King and her fiance Laura Stacy is on Team Kloss. So little inter-house rivalry there for a little bit for one night. I think another interesting pairing is going to be Sarah Nurse and Abby Rock. Not that I think there's bad blood or anything, but they've been pretty chippy with each other in games so far, so it'll be interesting to see that dynamic on the team. But I think it'll be fun, and it'll show, especially kids, because I mean the skills competition for the All-Star Game is really a draw for the kids to see what these players can do and like inspire players. So it'll be good for not just young girls to see, but also young boys to see that girls can play too. So yeah, it's exciting, and I'm really glad that the NHL is supporting this. Obviously, there's going to be criticisms out there saying like, oh, the NHL is so much bigger, they could be doing so much more. But at the same time, like, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll continue to say it until I'm blue in the face. How many times, how many leagues did it take to get to be here? So like the NHL is like, yeah, we've seen this before. So they easily could have just said, no, get out of here. But instead they're embracing it, and to a larger degree than the year that they had just a couple of PWHPA players come in to the skills competition. So it's a step in the right direction, and I think it's just another factor that makes this league feel so different and so much more official and real and professional than the previous leagues. But yeah, I'm just excited to see where it goes and who wins. I mean, go Team King. All my Boston players are on Team King, so there's that. And now the hard part for me. Boston versus New York. Boston won, New York 4. That was a tough one for me, guys. I can't even mask it. I'll start with the good. Attendance was 4,007 people, which is only 5 fewer players than the home opener, so that is super exciting. We're getting traction here. Unfortunately, some of those people were New York supporters, but it was a great turnout, again, especially considering we're not playing in Boston. It's nice to see that people are making the effort to come out to see it. The UMaine women's hockey team was also in attendance. I saw them sitting in the section next to me. And moving into the play itself, Boston needs to figure it out. Not that they are doing terrible by any means. They honestly did play really, really well. But where they weren't the best, they do need to step it up. Specifically, I'm talking about rebounds. They had 33 shots and only 1 goal. And I credit that disparity to when a shot came off a pad, there was nobody but New York players to collect it. It also feels like they're not fully gelled yet, meaning in certain passing positions or passing plays, it seemed like they weren't on the same page. So the player with the puck expected their center, their other winger, whoever, to be there to collect a puck for a drop pass or just floating it out to the side, but nobody was there. So it feels like they're just not on the same page yet in that sense. Like they don't know each other's play style or tendencies well enough yet. Of course, there's exceptions for players like Keller and Knight that have played on the same team and like have played for the US together for so long that they do know all of that. But there are a lot of Canadians on the Boston team who are not used to playing with the national team with them and are not used to playing college with each other like Minnesota. So yeah, it just feels like they might be, I don't want to say the last team because I don't know Ottawa's team all that well yet, but it feels like they might be one of the last teams that hasn't fully like clicked together in terms of their play style. In that sense, it was a painful game because there were so many chances, and the flip side of those chances were that Corinne Schroeder absolutely stood on her head. 33 shots on goal, only 1 goal, so 32 saves. And some of them were not easy. Like, a lot of them were very quality chances that she shut down. So, I mean, she was second star of the game, but honestly, in my book, she should have been first, because she was the one that robbed me of that victory. And I say me because I was at the game, and it hurt. It did hurt. It was a very physical game as well, and I see it going the way of like a classic Boston-New York rivalry. I can totally see these teams being super chippy with each other, being, I don't know, just that classic rivalry, like Sox, Yankees, like Patriots, Giants, you know? I can just see it going that way. Not to, again, like, all games have been physical so far, but this one felt like especially physical. And not even like they were huge hits. There were just a lot of them. Alright, and then getting into the actual goals themselves, I suppose I should do that. So, the talk of the game really is Jade Downey-Landry with the third PWHL hat trick. And what was super interesting to me about those were that she only had one other player have an assist. Her first one was unassisted. Her second goal was assisted by Kayla Vespa. And then her third goal was an empty net unassisted goal. What I saw from her is exactly my critique for Boston, is that she was there collecting rebounds. Her first goal came from a really nice rebound off a pad that she was able to cash in on because she was in the right place and expecting a rebound. My critique for Boston has been, you gotta be there. Just nobody's there. All she had to do was stand there and goal came to her. It was a tough look for Emma Soderberg. She only saved 10 of 13 shots, and Erin Frankel came in after the third one in the second period, which was tough to see. You don't like to see goalies get swapped, but I think she was maybe a little bit rattled. And for the last game, Montreal versus Toronto. Montreal 3, Toronto 4 in the PWHL's first ever shootout. Some classic play from both teams. A lot of good things coming out of there. Again, Toronto's the bottom of the standings, so it feels weird to say that it was a very evenly matched game, but Toronto had 40 shots on goal, which is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And Desbiens for Montreal was really the reason that Montreal was able to have only 3 goals going into overtime. So I guess the first controversial question I have is Toronto's no goal in the third period. Was it interference or was it a goal? Because to me, it seemed like it wasn't under control by Desbiens, but at the same time, I do understand why it was called off. I think it was a very quick decision, where if it were me, I probably would have called it a goal and then reviewed it, had like a team call to review it, if they really thought it was interference, because it looked good to me. But yeah, feel free to disagree with me. Yell at me in the comments. I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to say this, but like, this was really a goalie's game. Like I said, Desbiens was standing on her head, saving so many shots. Campbell played great though too. Montreal had 24 shots and Campbell saved 21 of them, so those are pretty good numbers too. Obviously not quite as ridiculous as the 40 official shots on goal for Toronto. The last couple minutes of the game of regulation were really good. Like some of the best hockey that you can see. We had 2 goals in the last 2 minutes of the game. Of course, Natalie Spooner giving Toronto the go-ahead goal at 18:36, so with a minute and 24 a minute and 24 to go. And of course, who else but Captain Clutch, Marie-Philippe Poulin, scoring with, like, let me do the math here, 18 seconds left in the game. That is absurd. Absurd. To send him to overtime. And overtime was, I mean, it wasn't dull, but it wasn't thrilling either. I think the thrill really came from the fact that everybody kind of saw this shootout coming. Let's go into the shootout itself, because I think these rules are very interesting as well, and they're different from what we see in the NHL. The home team gets to pick who goes first in the shootout, and they chose themselves to go first. Who else are you going to go with first but Marie-Philippe Poulin? She did not score. Maggie Connors of Toronto did not score. Marie-Philippe Poulin shot again, because you can do that. You can, I guess, pick the same player as many times as you want in a shootout, or you can move on to the next and have a different shooter every single time, which is what Toronto did. But it's a different strategy that teams are able to use, and again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this is used going forward, especially with players like Marie-Philippe Poulin, who is Captain Clutch and is known for these incredible plays in these high pressure situations. So I totally understand why they went with her multiple times. I mean, I could see a whole lot of other players going more than once, but I don't know if we'll see it as many times as we did in this game, because Marie-Philippe Poulin took 4 of them. Toronto had Hannah Miller shoot twice, and that was the most that Toronto had someone shoot. The shooters who scored, the first was Hannah Miller of Toronto, which was immediately answered by Marie-Philippe Poulin of Montreal. And then to win the game, it was Lauriane Rougeau of Toronto in the first shootout, which they really needed. Again, they were at the bottom of the, I think they still might be the bottom of the standings, but they were on a 3-game slide, so they really needed that. They needed the morale boost, they needed the points boost, they just needed it. So well done, Toronto. Also well done to Montreal. It was a great game, especially like when you get free hockey, it was a good time. So congratulations to them. And just for something fun to end the week, send you off into your work week with a little bit of food for thought. Let's get some name suggestions going. There's been some great suggestions online. There have been some not so great suggestions online. So let's go through them and see what we got. It's been speculated that the Boston team might be called the Wicked because it was trademarked at some point or whatever. I didn't look into it. Somebody else said that. I'm going to go with no. I do say Wicked. I do live near Boston-ish. I grew up in Connecticut, though, and my mom said Wicked. So I don't know that it's necessarily a Boston thing so much as a New England thing. It's also just bad. I don't like it. And people kind of liked the idea, but didn't like the name, so they tweaked it to be the Coven. And I don't know how many people and how many times have to say this online, but no, like, Coven refers to Salem, which is outside of Boston, at least 40 minutes by car, even if it's geographically very close. If we're going to complain that the Boston team isn't playing in Boston, let's not name it after a place that isn't also Boston. The Salem witch trials happened in technically Danvers, Massachusetts, but what was then Salem Colony, which is not Boston. So, if we're gonna make a Boston team, let's name it for something Bostonian. If that's what you want to do. Otherwise, let's go alliteration. Let's do something else. Some great suggestions I've heard for the Boston team from user Cups and Pups. The Boston Puckwudgies, which is a reference to, I believe it's the Bridgewater Triangle. There's a cryptid called the Puckwudgie, and you can go Google that and see just how great it is. From user What's Hamilton on Reddit, Boston Duncan, which really, as another user said, Duncan would be out of their minds to turn up such an opportunity to support a team and brand a team after themselves. Unfortunately, the Boston team is not pink and orange themed, so that might be a problem. But I think they can make it work. I think it could work. Another great one, and I don't remember who I saw this from, was the Boston Chowder Heads. Who doesn't love some New England clam chowder, kid? I mean, it's got potential. We could dress up like soup. Our mascot could be a bowl of soup. Who doesn't love that? And the last good one that I saw for Boston, as a dog lover and a lover of this breed, the Boston Beaucerons. And a Beauceron, for those of you who don't know, is a very old French herding breed. And again, the reason I like this name is I'm a dog lover. I love a Beauceron. They're gorgeous dogs. And I love an alliteration. What can I say? I'm simple. So there are some cities and some places that have a more difficult time coming up with great names. One of them being Montreal. Y'all don't want to be the Canadiens again. I get that. I mean, really, the only viable suggestion that I've seen are the Montreal Bagels. I'm not mad about it. I like a bagel. I've never had a Montreal bagel, but I'll try one just for you guys. Ottawa has a very similar circumstance in that it's very difficult. I mean, what's going on in Ottawa other than like government? And if you want to stay on government, I mean, somebody suggested the Ottawa civil servants, which, is that really worse than Ottawa senators? Is it? I don't know. Let me know. You also got the Ottawa Cobra Chickens, which I think is a great nod to the Canadian goose, which we also have here, and they are the bane of everyone's existence. But Cobra Chicken really stuck out to me there. And a clever one that I like, again, just for the cleverness of it, is the Ottawa Owls, also an alliteration. And the cleverness behind that is that a group of owls is called a parliament. So, it works. It works. And they're wise. I don't know if they are good at hockey or not, but they've got that going for them. Minnesota's another one that's got some difficulties, but also some decent suggestions. There's a lot of talk out there about being the Minnesota Rain, because it's purple and all that, but I think we got to think outside the box here. The Minnesota Meese. And yes, user Fabulous Flying Fern is aware that the plural of moose is not meese and does not care. I like that, and I respect that. User Is That So-So on Reddit says the Minnesota Frostbite, which, I think matches. I think it's perfect. Because you know what color Frostbite is? Purple and black. And then another more local nod is the Minnesota Grey Ducks, because apparently they are not normal and do not play Duck Duck Goose. They play Duck Duck Grey Duck. Then we got Toronto. So I don't know a whole lot about Toronto other than like Degrassi was filmed there and the Maple Leafs. So I'm gonna let Reddit and Instagram and social media kind of handle this one for me. So somebody said the Toronto traffic. I think this could really work for Boston or New York. I think Boston and New York are probably more known for their traffic than Toronto, because I didn't know that Toronto had a traffic problem. But it is an alliteration, so I will give it some points for that. The one that I really enjoyed was the Toronto Trash Pandas. And I'm so sorry I didn't write down their name, but somebody said God gave them hands, but not shame. And that one really made me laugh. I just like the idea of a raccoon being a mascot for a team. And their little masks go with the black. I don't know, man. I like it. And then New York City really only has one choice. New York City is the Pizza Rats, and they will play at the Rat's Nest, and their fans will be the Rat Pack, and I will hear nothing else. Thanks for listening, everybody. Make sure that you subscribe and tell your friends, and follow me on Instagram at IceEarnedPod. Have a great week, everybody.